thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. I'm really just excited at the number of people who are invested in helping small businesses, and it's going to make our Q&A session fantastic. So please do hold your questions for the end, but if you have them, my compatriot Armando is going to be acting as our flight controller, so he'll be queuing up those questions for the Q&A session. So don't hesitate to ask those questions as they come up. We might even answer them in real time if they're germane to the module that we're seeing. So thank you so much for the introductions. I actually want to talk a little bit about the data related to some of the things that we heard about from the team at WEDC. So let's talk a little bit about entrepreneurship right now. These are business formations starting in January 2004, going up to December of 2022. And you're going to see this little dip here. So this was what we thought was the trend. This was the start of the pandemic. But what you've seen since then is a surge of entrepreneurship that is unprecedented in the history of the United States. And even as it's gone lower and higher, you can see that the lowest lows are still higher than the previous highs. And this isn't just a trend within the United States. This is the Midwest, and this is Wisconsin. And what's happening is an investment in helping all of these new businesses. And let's talk about why the data that you're going to see is so important. This is the first 5-year survival rate for new businesses. This isn't our data. This is coming from Entrepreneur and Investopedia. And you're going to see a very interesting trend here, which is about by year 5, 50% of new businesses have closed. But when we dive into why businesses are failing, we get a much more interesting picture. About a third of businesses fail because they die of a natural death. It's because they're trying to sell horseshoes and people move to cars. They are selling the wrong product at the wrong time, or perhaps there's other things that they may not be executing on. But about 2/3 of businesses that do fail because they're not properly prepared. And if we're able to give those businesses the correct information, for instance, the number of employees that they need for a business typical in their industry, they can staff correctly. If they overstaff, their burn rate might be so high that they may run out of their initial capital investment. If they understaff and perhaps they're customer-facing, consumer-facing, maybe they're going to get bad reviews on their grand opening because they're understaffed. And it's hard to recover from those low reviews on Yelp or Google Maps or others. By providing the correct information, they can make more optimal business decisions. Now, the information that we provide is very powerful, but we are providing a big business intelligence tool for all small businesses. And let me tell you what I mean by that. The information that you're going to see is the same information that big businesses use. The difference is they're either using their own in-house business analysts who are getting paid 6-figure salary plus benefits to prepare this information, or for some really large firms, they're going out to the Deloittes and McKinseys of the world in order to get this information generated for them. But we're putting all of that information in a package that is available to you 24/7. And we know that's critical because we know that a lot of small businesses are so busy during the daytime when traditional economic development services are available to them that they can't engage. By putting an online tool, you're able to engage with them on the evenings and on weekends when they're oftentimes starting this process and they have it. It's a simple to use tool. We only ask 2 questions. What's the industry you're in, and where are you performing your business, or where are you thinking about expanding to or starting your business? That's all you need to get started. And any of the information that you see on this, we know that you're collaborating with your attorneys, with economic development organizations, with your partners, with investors. You can export any of the tools that you see here onto a paper format. And so you could slice and dice it and put that information to an Excel or a loan application or other things. So one of the things I want to explain is I said this is a tool for all small businesses. And while we think of businesses as small, we actually can operate through different levels of those businesses. So maybe you have restaurants, and we can look at it from that level. We're looking at all restaurants, but we can also dive deeper. We could go to Italian and then pizza. And that's not just about consumer-facing businesses, retail businesses. You could look at all automotive or vehicle maintenance or even motor repair or manufacturing. You might be a large manufacturer, maybe you just do plastics or plastic foam. whatever level of an industry that you're looking at or whatever level you want to do analysis at, SizeUp can support you in that effort. And it doesn't matter what your trade area is either. SizeUp can do analysis at the neighborhood level if you're a neighborhood bar, or if you have a product that you're exporting somewhere else in the entire United States, you can go ahead and use the tool. It will support. So we're going to see 3 different modules today. And this is really a guided tour so that you can then explore on your own. And those 3 modules are the My Business Ranking tool that actually gives you objective information about how your existing business or your prospective business would perform against businesses typical in your industry. The competition tool allows you to understand the entire ecosystem in which you're operating, your competitors, your supply chain, and your customers, or if you're using the tool for prospecting, your potential customers. And then the 3rd module is the advertising module. The advertising module allows you to understand where you can maximize the value of every dollar spent on advertising, giving you hyper-local information and the type of characteristics, demographic or business, that really matter to you. So that's a quick overview of where we're going to go. And there are infinite use cases, as I discussed, right? We could look at large manufacturers, small manufacturers, retail partners, but we're just going to look at 3 stories: a specialty coffee shop in Milwaukee, a carpenter in Green Bay, and a dentist in Ropa as we go through these modules. So I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my other screen right now, which is the actual tool that you can get to on the Wisconsin Economic Development site. So this is SizeUp Wisconsin. And as I mentioned, we don't ask you for NAICS or SIC codes. We know that 95% of small businesses don't know what NAICS or SIC is. So we just simply ask you to put in what you're interested in. So we put in coffee shop. And again, we can look at anywhere in the state, but we can, in this case, go ahead and look at Milwaukee. And the first module that we're going to look at, you can see that you can jump immediately to whatever type of analysis or intelligence you're trying to gather. But we're going to go ahead and look at the My Business or benchmarking tool. So if I ask the question right now that many entrepreneurs might have is, how much money can I make in this industry? Or how much money would I need to make to be like a typical business? So I don't know how much the average coffee shop makes in Milwaukee, but I'm going to go ahead and guess $1 million. And what we're going to find out is actually the typical coffee shop in Milwaukee is actually going to be making more than that. It's about $1.16 million. So we're a little bit below average in revenue, but you can actually see that we're in the 53rd percentile. So every single benchmark you're going to see is going to have information about in a chart view, a tabular view, if you want to cut and paste this into Excel, and then hyper-local information. You can zoom in and zoom out so that you can see heat maps of where that spending is happening. And you notice we zoom out, we start getting information at a county level or even at a state level for those people who are exporting. So I'm not going to review this on every single KPI or benchmark, key performance indicator, but I wanted you to see that it was there. So here we go. We have some information now about what's happening within Wisconsin with coffee shops. The other thing that's really valuable is to understand what's happening in a given industry. So what I'm showing right now are new coffee shop openings, and we can see them just like we did before at the national or neighborhood level. So maybe we're not a national coffee shop. Maybe, as I mentioned, we're a 3rd wave coffee shop. So we're a specialty coffee shop. So we're not even trying to look at the state level. We're just trying to look at the metro, county, and city level. And we can see, even though you may think there's a Starbucks in every corner and there may not be space for new coffee shops, they're still opening. As a matter of fact, 7 new coffee shops opened in 2021. And you can see the counties that are also experiencing new coffee shops along with the state level. Salary can also be opaque for small businesses, so they don't have a professional HR team providing them this information. $20,000 may not seem like a lot of money, but you can actually see that it's a very fair salary for a barista, and you can actually see counties where you'd expect to pay more or less for that particular job type. We could also look at number of employees. So let's go ahead and say 7 people. And wow, I think we can agree that 7 people is a small business, but it's actually a very small coffee shop. Your coffee shops are on average almost double or more than that 7-person business. Now, again, The example I was using was a specialty coffee shop. So they may have a different business model where you're not trying to get as many people in, but really let people linger over your special organic, locally roasted coffees. So this is where the tool starts to bring real value, because up to this point, we've been really looking at individual key performance indicators. But now we can take that information and we can start looking at employees per capita to understand how the size of your business relative to others. And we can look at cost effectiveness. So our story just changed a lot. Our revenue for this coffee shop was slightly below average, but we're working with half of the employees of a normal coffee shop or a typical coffee shop. Even though we're paying them more, our cost effectiveness is 72% above average. So this isn't generic information. This is about information about your specific business, your specific marketing plan, your specific processes, products, services. And you can see where areas are more cost effective or less cost effective in terms of the amount of product sold, services sold, employees, and wages. We can also compare things like revenue per capita. So we're seeing not just where the money is being spent, but also where the money is where the money is coming from, those households. We can look at retention rates. So imagine if we were that typical coffee shop and we had 15-ish employees and we were losing 2. And this is a frustration for us, right? We're losing 2 people every year that we have to recruit, retrain, whatever it may be. And though that can be a frustration for you, when we look at it through the lens of data, there's an 82% retention rate. That means about a 20% turnover rate. You're upset that you're losing 2 people, but through the lens of data, you should be losing about 3 people. So what you thought was a weakness for your business is actually a strength. A couple of other items that can sometimes be hidden from small businesses are healthcare costs. So I'm going to go ahead and put in 5,000, and we can see that the state average is about 7,250 per employee, and then also workers' compensation. Now, as I mentioned, if you have a professional HR team like a big business would have, you might already know this information, but it can be a chance for you to understand this objectively through the lens of data, and then maybe you can reach out to see if there are insurance plans where they group your business together so you can cut your costs if they're higher, or you can recognize you're doing really well versus the average. And this works, again, across all industries. The last thing that I'm going to show you was the summary view. So when you click this button, you're going to get a dashboard for your entire business. Really valuable if you start looking at running scenarios. You can, of course, click on this PDF, as I mentioned, and export the tool. But maybe you're thinking, this is great. I was a little bit below average in my first year of my specialty coffee shop, and I'm planning on generating more revenue next year, but there's going to be some growing pains. So I have to add extra staff, maybe 10 people, to staff that additional business. And how does that affect my cost effectiveness? I went to about 50% above average from the 70s. All of this information, as I mentioned, is available for you to run as many times as you want. There's no limit. So you can run through all sorts of different scenarios. The same is true. Maybe you're thinking about adding food, right? Instead of just coffee, then you can go ahead and just pivot to being a cafe. And you can see the impact on revenue, what you'd be expected within industries or adjacent industries. So that is the first of the 3 modules. This is the My Business or benchmarking tool. And it helps you understand objectively the performance of your business versus typical competitors in your industry. I'm going to go ahead and pause there and check in with Armando if there's anything that came up that I should respond to.